enormously happy to be here. I've had such a warm reception in Australia. I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. You know, actually, we are preaching to the choir, and I just want to put a word in for preaching to the choir. There is a reason the minister preaches to the choir every week, and that is important for the choir to gather. By preaching to the choir, we deepen our analysis, we strengthen our commitment, we have each other's back, and we share a little love. Because going out there into the big world where you are told day in and day out that you are inadequate unless you buy more stuff, that the answer to happiness is pursuing increased economic growth, it's hard out there and it's lonely out there. So let's just give it up a minute for being with the choir and sharing a little. Very happy to be here among the choir. So those of you who've seen that movie or know me, you know that I am obsessed with stuff. I am literally obsessed with stuff. I'm so obsessed that I really did spend over a decade traveling around the world and visiting the factories where our stuff is made and the dumps where our stuff is dumped. I snuck into these things in China and South Africa and Haiti, all over. I have this whole range of disguises and fake business cards and everything, and I just tracked it down because I was so curious. And the result of that is I got to see firsthand the often hidden environmental and social and health impacts and emotional effects of the way that we make and use and throw away stuff. So what happens when you do that is you develop this weird kind of visual mental neurosis. It's like what that film did in 20 minutes. I do that all the time, all day. Like everything I see, like this pen and this mouse and this microphone, it's like its entire life cycle flashes through my mind. So I'm constantly like this, you know, and these like images that I've seen all over the world pop up. So I'm looking at this metal that probably came from South Africa. I'm imagining the mine, the plastic. This is probably synthesized from Gujarat. I'm imagining the chemical factory, the effluent pipe. I'm imagining it was put together in China. It was on some big ship. I know how big the ship. It's like it's constant. And I'm not complaining. It's a fascinating way to go through the day. If any of you are looking for a neurosis, I really recommend you give this one a try. It is stunning. It is sometimes embarrassing, and I always have to tell my mother, I'm not stoned, I'm stunned. And sometimes it's a little bit lonely. And so that is why I made the story of stuff, is I wanted more people to join me in thinking about how we make and use and throw away stuff, and how we can do it so much better. And can I just say, it worked. I mean, I made that film sort of as a little side project with my friends. We put it up on the internet, and we hoped we would get 50,000 people. We said, if we got 50,000 people to watch this film, we could really turn the volume up on this much-needed conversation about how we make and use and throw away stuff. And to my utter shock, I'm still shocked, we got 50,000 people in one day. We are now at over 13 million views all over the world. We can go to Google Analytics, and it's kind of creepy, but it's very interesting. You can go to any country in the world and see a dot everywhere someone has watched it. It is now every country in the world except one in the middle of Africa, and I keep meaning to send them a DVD because then we'll have it covered. So I just want to tell you that Australia has our 4th highest viewership rate of all these countries. It is amazing. We get tens of thousands of emails from people in Australia. It is absolutely amazing, the positive response that this film has had in Australia. And so that's why I'm here. I was invited to Australia by this wonderful engineering organization called SSEE, the Society for Sustainability and Environmental Engineers. They just had a conference in Brisbane, and they invited me. I said, you know, there's so many darn friends that I haven't met yet in Australia. I'm going to go. So I came to Brisbane, and then I've gone on this little tour, and I've had a wonderful time meeting people. So again, thank you so much. Many people congratulate me for making a viral film. I said, I did not make a viral film. I made a film, and the community made it viral. And that's how this works. And so really, thank you so much for watching and sharing the film. And if you're not yet signed up on our website, please do sign up at storyofstuff.org, because we've made a lot more films. And so every time we make a new film, we will let you know if you're signed up, and like us on Facebook, and you can find out about everything we're doing. So people often ask me, how did I get like this? I just want to tell you my journey very quickly. For me, it started as a kid. I lived in a family that went camping a lot. I grew up in Washington State in the Pacific Northwest, really beautiful mountain areas, incredible forests, and we used to go camping. So we'd load up all our stuff into our little family station wagon, and we'd go driving up into the North Cascades, incredible mountains. And since this was before the day of having DVD players in cars, we used to actually look out the window and talk to each other. And that sounds very sort of novel at this point. Anyway, my siblings and I would notice that the forest started a little bit later each year. We'd pass these clear cuts, and they looked like scenes of violence. So I was too young to know about carbon sequestration and moderation of the hydrological cycle and all of the reasons that we actually need forests to live. I just felt in my gut that something was wrong when I saw it. I knew how good it felt in the forest, and I was worried about why they were being clear-cut. And these logging trucks would come down with these logs that were as big in diameter as our little family station wagon. I remember watching them barrel by and just thinking, what is going on? So I decided to become a forest activist. And I also decided to go to school in New York City, which is a weird place to go if you want to be a forest activist. But I was mesmerized by New York City, and it turned out to be very fortuitous, because that's where I found the next piece of the puzzle. I went to college right in the city, right in Manhattan, and my dorm was 6 blocks away from the college. And every morning I would walk those 6 blocks, and New York streets are lined with garbage. I don't know if you've been there, it is just totally amazing. It is like shoulder-high piles of garbage every day, everywhere you go. It's stunning. And so I would look at those every morning, and then I'd come home in the evening and they'd be gone. And I was like, what is all that stuff? So that's where I picked up my habit, which I still have to this day, of opening up garbage and looking at garbage cans. Because it's so interesting. It's like reading a society's secret journal. You can find out so much about what's going on. So I opened up those bags in New York City, and I was absolutely shocked. It was almost all paper. I said, wait, this is what my beloved Northwest forest that made me feel so good. This is what's being chopped down to be made pizza boxes and office paper. And you know, in the United States today, where recycling has been a household word for decades, still over 40% of our municipal garbage is paper. I don't know what it is here. Does anyone know what the municipal garbage? I'm sure you can find it online. It's probably very, very similar, maybe even a little bit more. I mean, so that is stunning that we hear all this stuff about a garbage crisis. Just by getting off junk mail lists, using both sides of the paper, and then recycling, we could cut our garbage almost in half. So I was stunned, and then I said, well, okay, I'm starting to put the pieces together, but where does it go when it's gone? So I took a trip out to the landfill that New York City's garbage goes to that is amazingly called Fresh Kills Landfill. So I went to this landfill in Staten Island, and I stood there as a 19-year-old, and I looked out, and in every direction, all you can see is waste. There was furniture and appliances and books. I could not believe books. I was raised to respect books. There were shoes, there was food. It was just stunning. And I realized 2 things. I realized that we had built our economy on an unsustainable throughput of materials. Like, this is not okay. The second thing I realized is that it was a secret. I was like, how could I have gone to being 19 years old before I found out about this? So I decided I'm going to figure out more, and I'm going to tell people what I learned. So that day, and I did go on to spend the next 10 years traveling around the world, looking at factories and dumps. And I summarized what I learned in that story of stuff film. It's humbling to have 20 years of your adult life summarized into a 20-minute cartoon, but I can summarize it even more, and I think it is really important to do that. Because often we environmentalists are such a whiny and wonky and technical bunch, and we're waving our charts and graphs in front of people, and we're wondering why they don't invite us to parties. We haven't learned that charts and graphs is not what's needed here. You know, sometimes environmentalists are caught in the myth that the truth will set us free, and it will not. Because if the truth would set us free, we would be free. Because we have all the data to prove our concerns are true. What will set us free is building a diverse, broad, inclusive movement to regain power in our countries, get our governments and our businesses back on track, and build an economy that serves people and the planet rather than corporate greed. That is what will set us free. So the 3 things I learned, I'm going to distill it down a little further from this film. The 3 things I learned that are so important is that we are trashing the planet, we are trashing each other, and we are not even having fun. Now, that 3rd one is a real kicker here, because if this system was fun, if it was working for the majority of the world's people, we might want to have a different conversation, right? We might want to talk about how to prop up an inherently unsustainable system as long as possible because it's really fun. Or if it was really like a super good party, we might want to say, hell, let's just go down in flames, but at least we're but you know what, we are going down in flames and we are not enjoying the ride. So the time is so ripe to just try something different. There was actually a 4th thing I learned that was incredibly important in all this work too, which is it doesn't have to be this way. There are so many alternatives. I feel like we have an alternatives smorgasbord buffet. There are so many things that we could do different and we could do better. People who tell you there is no alternative, they are not actually looking for one. They must actively be hiding from them because they are just busting at the seams everywhere you go these days. Are alternatives. There are alternatives on the technical fronts, things like clean energy, carbon reduction. I just spent this couple days with these amazing sustainability engineers in Brisbane. They said that with existing technology, technologies right now, we could be reducing carbon emissions by 85% by 2050, just with existing technology. And new technologies are coming up all the time. So carbon reduction technologies, green chemistry, there's incredible innovations around green chemistry. Right now, we're using a lot of chemicals that were synthesized mostly since World War II that are really toxic. And it wasn't that these chemists were trying to poison us, it just wasn't on their radar screen when they developed these new synthetic chemicals. They were taught to look at all these other characteristics of chemicals, and they weren't taught to look at how do they interact with human and ecological communities. So now green chemists are going back to the drawing board and designing new compounds from the molecular levels where they're designing out the hazard so we don't have to worry about this stuff getting in us or getting in the environment because it's inherently safe. Like stuff like that is so exciting. And there are infinite examples of that on the technical level. On the social level, there are also so many fabulous examples where people are deciding to invest in communities rather than just in corporate profit. One of the trends in that front that really has me excited these days is the resurgence of sharing, or as fancy people call it, collaborative consumption. A new term for sharing. But those of us who remember kindergarten, we call it sharing. And sharing is an enormously important piece of the solution. So one of the things that I'm seeing all over the world is people building the infrastructure and the culture to bring back sharing. Like in terms of the infrastructure, in my town, the public library system has a tool lending library. So I can take my library card and I can go borrow a jackhammer or a power drill or a ladder or anything that I need just for a few days and then take it back. The great thing about sharing is that it reduces the impact on the planet because not every house needs a power drill and a lawnmower and a tractor and a cupcake can, carpet cleaner and all this stuff. You can share. So we less impact on the planet because we're making and using and throwing away stuff. It's good for our budgets because we can own 1/20th of a wheelbarrow instead of each of us having our own. And it's good for community because to share, you have to talk to each other. And so that's one of the great things on the social front. Another thing on the social front I'm really excited about are people beginning to limit advertisements. We've got to reclaim our physical and mental landscape from these constant messages pushing inadequacy marketing to get us to buy more stuff. On the political front, there's enormous signs of hope as well. What we need to do on the political front is get corporations out of our democracy and get the people back in. And we are seeing that with Occupy Wall Street and so many other places all over the world where people are re-engaging their citizen selves and getting involved in building the power to make change. I feel like in many ways the story of stuff took the temperature of the world, and whereas I thought I was like this lonely, marginalized garbage freak, I found out that actually there's millions and millions of people out there who share our concerns and want a better world. There are enough of us to make change. If you look at the polls, the vast majority of people there share our values, share our concerns. Most people want their babies born without toxic chemicals already in their blood. Most people want a clean and healthy environment. So our job is to move that concern into action. And if you look at the polls about how many people share our ultimate concerns, we have higher numbers of support than Martin Luther King had in the Civil Rights Movement. We have higher numbers of support than women had in getting the vote. We have higher numbers of support than abolitionists had fighting slavery. Yet we're sitting in these corners with our charts and graphs and trying to get the last 20 or 30% that don't agree with us. Come on, let's get everybody on board. Forget those unreachables. We have enough people who want a better future that if we get engaged and move that concern to action, we can turn things around. So my final word is about change. People often ask me, do I think we're going to change? I'm like, hello, we are using 1.5 planets full of worth of resources each year, and we have only one planet. Duh, and of course we're going to change. You can't use 1.5 times what you got indefinitely. Absolutely we are going to change. The question is not if we are going to change, but how. Change is inevitable, but are we going to change by design, or are we going to change by disaster? Because either way we are changing. Either way, that the built infrastructure, our community, our economy is going to look a lot different years down the road than it looked for us and for our parents and grandparents. But if we choose to change by design, we can be so much more intelligent, we can be so much more intentional and compassionate and strategic about making that change. If we dig our heels in, as our former president of the United States said, the American way of life is non-negotiable. If we continue the growth-obsessed, toxic-laden, consumer-frenzied way of organizing our society, believing that change is still coming, but it's going to be a lot more ugly, a lot more violent, a lot less just. I sort of feel like we're on a bus that is going to turn the turning direction, and we have the choice. We can either be at the driver's seat or we can get run over. It is up to us, but that we are changing direction. So it's up to us to decide We can do it by design or by disaster. And the best way to do it by design is to get out of our houses, put our computers aside, get talking to each other again, to rebuild our communities, rebuild an active living democracy, to take back the power in our countries and get things back on track. And tonight is a great example of that. So thank you guys so much for coming out. I'm so happy to meet you in person, be able to share some thoughts, and we're going to answer some questions and have discussions now. Thank you so much.